Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Simple Good Podcast. Simple steps to living a significant life, doing good, and pursuing your calling. I'm your host, Chris Marlow. Our first series is 5 anchors to overcoming life's storms. We're so excited to bring special guests to talk about these key topics. I'm so excited to introduce you to Kyle and Elizabeth Gibson. These are two of my favorite people. Kyle is a professional baseball player. He spent most of his career with the Minnesota Twins, and this year he's starting with the Texas Rangers. Elizabeth is his amazing wife. She went on a trip to Haiti with us in 2015. Both of them have been a part of Help One Now for the last 5 years. They have done so many amazing projects with Help One Now. We love their generosity. This week, we're going to talk about hope and what it means to have hope in the midst of a storm. And I can't wait for you to get to know Kyle and Elizabeth Gibson. Hey everyone, this is Chris Marlow. I'm here with my good friends Kyle and Liz Gibson, and according to their background, it looks like y'all just went hunting because that is such an amazing background. I'm so incredibly jealous, but we are super thankful that both of you are on the podcast and really sharing your personal life and your personal experiences as we've all tried to overcome life's difficulties, overcome the storms of life. You guys are coming on and you're talking about hope. And then I have to say, I don't know how you are feeling about this right now, but how unique is it for you all not to be playing baseball in May? Like, when's the last time you guys have experienced a May with no baseball?
The last time I've experienced a May with zero baseball, I was probably 6. Wow. Somewhere around there. Yeah. The last time that I didn't play in May was during my Tommy John rehab, but I was still around it every single day.
Yeah.
And for us together, this is probably our first time in May with no baseball. So it's offering us different, unique opportunities as a family to get to spend some more time together, to get to do different things with our kids. Miss Gibson over here is being the homeschool teacher and dominating that, doing end of the year testing. So nice. I'm trying to be a help around the house, trying to be a help with the family, but I feel like I'm getting.
Liz is not looking like the confidence there is not high, Liz.
No, it's been good. He is a help. He's being humble.
Awesome. Well, hey, let me introduce y'all real quick. Kyle, you're obviously a professional athlete. You pitch for the Texas Rangers, but we all know Liz is the one running the show. Liz, this is amazing to me. As I was over reading our notes today, and like you were on a Help One Now trip in 2015 to Haiti, and I couldn't believe it's been 5 years since we've taken that trip together. But since then, you guys have both been involved in Help One Now through various different ways, and we're so thankful for your support. And today we're just gathering to talk about what it means to overcome life's difficulties, life's storms. And in the midst of kind of all the chaotic parts of life, we believe these anchors are 5 key ways that we can overcome, not only in the worst of times, but these anchors will help us in the best of times as well. And so when we think about faith and loving one another and hope and courage and generosity, I just want to ask you all a quick question. When you think of the word hope, and I think Liz will start with you, when you think of the word hope, what first comes to your mind and why do you think it is important? And then Kyle, you can go ahead and answer after Liz.
I think that hope can be overwhelming in some regards, I guess. Like, what does that look like? It's different for each person, but for me, it just kind of all boils down to, I just keep thinking about, your will, not mine, to God, and that He has a plan and He's sovereign. And that's kind of how I cling to hope is, whatever you're going through, that never changes. So that's kind of where I find my hope. And that's like my key phrase is, you have a plan and it's better than mine. And I have my ideas in my head and what I think this should look like, what I think that should look like. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's like, your will, not mine. I'm going to follow. And it's just kind of my renewing of hope, I guess, is what I just kind of play that over in my head.
I love that. Kyle, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, hope has been something that I've thought about on different interviews and podcasts over this time, and just listening to whether it's David Platt or somebody else talk about, the different circumstances. And I feel like hope has somewhat taken a different meaning for me through the time, because I feel like hope ultimately should give me a positive outlook and should give me something to live for and look forward to. I think to me, it's my light at the end of the tunnel. Whether it's going through a career injury, or maybe it's just a tough time with the family, or maybe it's, a week-long spout with your spouse where it's just like you can't get on the same page, but there's still hope, and you can see at the end of the tunnel, okay, we're going to get through this, and this is why. David Platt said on a podcast we were listening to the other day is, people ask him, why would a good God orchestrate and be a part of something like this? And why should I believe in God because of it? And he said, I want to flip the question and say, why shouldn't you believe in God? And I said, okay, yeah, everybody wants to just flip the question. Great idea. And then he goes into, he's like, well, if you don't believe in God, then everybody is either lucky or unlucky based on their life circumstances. And some people get the short end of the stick, and at the end of their life, they got unlucky. And some people get extremely fortunate and have a great life, make a ton of money, do whatever they want to do, and are healthy all the time. And he said, but if you believe in God, then everybody has the same hope and the same ending if you ultimately believe in Christ. And I was like, man, I've never heard it phrased that way, and said, this is why you should believe in God, so that you have this hope. So I'm trying to use it as the positivity and the light at the end of the tunnel. Like, okay, yeah, it stinks that I'm not getting to play baseball and do this, but hey, I'm around my family. There's a positivity that's going on, and hopefully we'll see. Maybe people can take a few less things for granted. Maybe they got the chance to help someone out during this time, and maybe it renews a different sense about them during this.
Yeah, I love the light at the end of the tunnel, because it feels so important for us to understand we're going through COVID for a reason, right? And so it's definitely devastating, and there's been some heartbreaking stories, and we understand, all of our friends who are on the front lines right now. My sister-in-law and brother-in-law are firefighters and nurses, and so they're on the front lines every single day, and they're seeing some of the hardest realities each and every day here in our community in Raleigh-Durham area. But at the end of the day, the other thing I love about the concept of hope is that we get a chance to reimagine life. Because one, no matter how hard it is in the moment, there's always hope down the road. There's always that light at the end of the tunnel. But we also get a chance to really reimagine what life could look like for the better post-COVID. And I think one thing I'm trying to be encouraged by is we are getting a chance to slow down and to rethink some things. And one of the things I love about hope is as we slow down and reimagine in the midst of the struggle, it's the hope that's the foundation and the anchor for what life could look like. And so I'm thankful that you all are holding on to hope. And I do believe even what David said was so true. It's that hope is what's going to get us through these difficult times. So one of the questions I have, Kyle, is I know it's crazy for you not playing baseball in the midst of this pandemic. In light of some of the other challenges people are facing, playing baseball may or may not seem like a big deal to some, but it is a big deal for you. In your career, it's your passion. What would you say to the people listening, whatever their context or struggle is, about how you're maintaining hope with a situation that feels defeating? What ways have you found yourself? Have you been able to replenish yourself and kind of keep your spirit alive in the midst of this moment? And it may be, baseball related, or it may not be baseball. It may be another struggle that you've gone through in your life. But ultimately, what we really want the listener is we really want them to feel and sense that we all go through struggles, and hope can be an anchor that gets us through those struggles. So what struggles have you gone through, and how has hope been that anchor in that moment?
Yeah, I mean, it's been different. Not going to the field every day and having that type of routine. And one thing that always kind of helps when baseball might not be going the way it should is I try to think about, where's my priorities, where's my identity, and where's my passion. And baseball is a part of all three of those, but it's not the main anchor per se. It's not the main staple of who I am. So it's baseball has still allowed me to do a lot of things during this COVID-19 that maybe I wouldn't have been able to do without that vehicle and that platform. So I think it's all about kind of how you look at it and how you know, frame this situation. And it's definitely been devastating for others more so than some people. I think that baseball can be really good for our country, but I don't necessarily look at it as a healing sport. I don't think when we start playing, you know, coronavirus devastation is going to go away. Do I think it'll give people something to do at the end of the day and maybe a distraction? Yes, because it's done that for me. And, you know, things have also distracted me from baseball to get my mind off of it. But, you know, I think when it comes down to it, I try to not get wrapped up in when are we going to start, how many games are we going to play, where are we going to play, and I try to just let everything just kind of play out and wait until we know where we're going till we start making family plans, and wait until we have things set in stone before I start to speculate. Because for me, speculation tends to lead more to worry and tends to lead to more anxiety and anxiousness. And, you know, I think when I think about the light at the end of the tunnel, you know, when you first get in the tunnel, that light is really far away and it seems like it takes a long time to get to you. And then as you get closer, you start speeding toward the light and it becomes way more easier and more hopeful that you're through it. So for people who are going through the struggle right now, I would say we're all probably in maybe a little different spot of that tunnel. You know, maybe hopefully New York City is way farther along and they can get through it. And maybe, you know, St. Louis isn't quite as far. We don't really know. But, you know, if you're out of work and if you're struggling with homeschooling and you're, you know, having to do things that maybe you're not necessarily accustomed to doing, just keep doing your best. You know, I try to tell our kids every day, do your best at what you're doing. So whether it's a parent staying at home, just keep doing your best. And that's what we're trying to do is utilize the time we have. And I get it. People are out of work and not, you know, making the money that they need to sustain their life. But the only thing we can do is do the best at the situation that we're put in. And I can't remember who said it, but your situation doesn't necessarily determine how you look at it. You determine how you look at your situation. And sometimes that's harder to do when times are a little more difficult.
Yeah. Okay. So there's so many things I want to unpack there. One is identity. And I think it's so important, right? Because COVID, or really any time a storm in life comes, one of the things that can easily get ripped out of kind of the ecosystem in which we live in is our identity. We lose a job, maybe we lose a spouse, maybe we go through, different tragedies in life, and our identity really does take a hit, if you will. And Liz, maybe you want to speak on this a little bit, but what is the importance of keeping our, how do we embrace that identity is really important to our lives? Being a husband or a wife or having a certain career, those are important identity factors. But we also understand that those things can be taken away so quickly. Share with us how you think it's important to keep our identity focused on what's most important, and how maybe folks who are struggling with identity right now, how you can encourage them to kind of hang on to hope in the midst of maybe an identity crisis that they're facing.
I think that it's really easy during a time of crisis or in a storm just to go into survival mode. I'm really guilty of it. There's times even during a normal baseball season with now 3 kids, that you just want to survive the day. And I don't think God faults us for that. I don't think that's something that we should feel guilt over, because it's just kind of our natural, that's just what we do. But I think I just would encourage people that we're meant for more than that. Like I said, totally guilty, but just to strive to keep your identity in Christ and keep trying to live as Jesus showed us, and just try to keep modeling that for the people around us, and keep loving each other, and try not to just revert to the complete survival mode. But God calls us to more than that, and he's going to bless us through that. As you strive to still love, to still serve, however that is. There's always something you can do, right? Whether it's just praying, simple things, but God's going to bless us through that. So just trying to strive for something more than survival. And that kind of grounds our identity, I think, a little better.
Yeah, I love that grounding of identity. Kyle, you mentioned, sometimes trying to just do our best. And sometimes our best is just enough, right? It's all we can give to the world is whatever our best is. I know for me, there are days in the midst of the COVID crisis that I'm feeling on top of the world and I'm crushing it. And other days that I'm like, man, I just literally want to go eat a hamburger at my favorite joint. Like what is happening? Like why? Like what's going on here? And Kyle, being a professional athlete, I know when I first started, connecting with Blaine and some other friends that we have, Brian, and one thing that was unique for me, and Liz, I don't know how you do this. I think maybe you're just hardened to it being a baseball wife, but like it is so stressful to go to a game and watch a friend like pitch in front of thousands of people, right? I'm like praying more than I've ever prayed in my life, like strike him out. Oh, it's so stressful. I don't know how you do it, Liz. But ultimately, I think one reality, it's so hard unless you're a professional athlete to understand that sometimes your best is just your best. And, that's, so maybe can you just kind of help people talk about what it means just to give it your best? And some days that's great. Other days it's not enough, but ultimately it's still your best. How can people just be okay with giving the best effort they can give in this one day at a time moment that we live in?
Yeah. So I want to kind of connect it to two things. One, your hope, right? So when you fail at something, or something fails you, if you have your hope in it, then it's way more crushing. So if someone were to find their hope in baseball, at some point, you're going to have a bad game or you're going to have to retire and somebody's going to tell you you're not good enough and your hope is going to be crushed because that's what gave you the joy and that motivation. The second thing is when everybody, no matter what job you have, obviously, my job might be amplified when I have a bad game. But everybody, whether it's being a husband or a coworker or an employee, whatever it is, you have bad days. And if your hope and your identity is wrapped up in that thing that you do, then your identity is going to go on that roller coaster with your emotions. Your emotions are already going to go. That's completely natural. I get frustrated sometimes more than I want to. I get more happy and overjoyed when I have good games more than I want to because we're always going for this even keel. But if I don't have my identity wrapped up in it, then it's just my emotions going on that roller coaster, not necessarily my whole life and identity. So that's what I would tell people is I try to keep my hope out of, placing my hope in my family, try to keep away from placing my hope in my relationship and my identity in those two things. Because if my identity is, hey, I am a great father, I'm not going to be a great father some days. And then my identity is going to be wrecked. I've gone through it on the baseball field and off the baseball field. And both times when you either lose sight of your identity or you have it wrapped up in something that is shakeable, it just sends you on that roller coaster. So I would just suggest people find something that your hope can be in that is less shakeable than maybe what you have in it now. And then find something that about your identity is true and believe the truth and don't believe the outside lies and the outside noise that comes in. Because everybody, whether it's coworkers, a boss, they're going to tell you, man, you didn't get this done. You're not good at your job. Well, okay, maybe you failed at this one thing, but that doesn't mean you're good at it. So, but if your identity is wrapped up in it, then it's going to go on that roller coaster with it.
Yeah, I love that. I know for so many folks that are just struggling right now, whether it's a loss of job or whether they're trying to figure out how to be even a good parent. We're all stuck in that's like, we're all struggling through the same scenarios. I remember one time I was speaking at an event and and I just did terrible. You know how you're performing live when you know you're doing terrible? I mean, you're just doing terrible. Like I had nothing in me. Like I'm like, this is so terrible. So I sat down next to my friend Jen and she gives me this little side hug and she goes, "Oh, you did great." And I'm like, I've been speaking for 20 years now. And I'm like, whatever, don't lie. And everyone's trying to encourage me afterwards. And I'm just like, let's just go to lunch and get this over with, and get on a plane and go home. It's one of those moments. And so one of my good friends, Adam, like 3 weeks later, he said, "Hey, I heard you on the podcast when you spoke at such and such place. And he says, bro, you did terrible. And I was like, yeah, I mean, thank you, Adam, for letting me know. I knew that. But it's funny how, like, there are just days that, you're a great parent, days that you're not great. Like life is, have so many ups and downs. And yet at the end of the day, it was hope. Like, I know that's just one bad scenario. And I have a hope in me that the next time I get on a stage and talk about Help One Now and whether I'm speaking for Help One Now or preaching or doing whatever, that, I had hope that there'd be better days again. And so it's that hope that kept me hanging on. So one of the questions we want to talk about is last week we talked about the importance of one another. And in Scripture, it's really crazy. I think it's 53 or 54 times in the New Testament, there's a one another connection, love one another, serve one another, all of these one anothering. And so, Liz, how do you guys basically, I know both of you well enough to know that you guys really care for your neighbors, whether it's around the world or your neighbors. You all give back. We partner Help One Now and Big League Impact. I know your family gives back. You guys seem to have built a life where giving back and caring for your neighbor, whether it's local or global, is really, really important. So I would love for both of you to talk about why giving back, why caring is so important to your family.
We do try to make it an important part of what we do. Just always kind of asking the question, how can we help in this scenario? And we try to we very much talk about it and discuss that, but also in prayer and just saying, what do you want us to do in this situation, and trying to feel that out. And sometimes it's, like I said, pray about it or pray for this. Sometimes it's something much more large scale, but I think that's what we're called to do, right? So we're one body of Christ, and we just try to serve in that. And we're called to help each other. And that's what we feel, not as an obligation, but that we want to do that. And we have been so richly blessed in many ways, but always just looking to see how can we help that situation or that person or whatever it is. We try to model that for our kids so that they know, like, this world does not revolve around you. And we want them to serve, and we want them to know what that looks like firsthand from us.
That's awesome. Kyle, why is it important to give back?
I think there's quite a few spots in the Bible where you could point to. I think one is to who much is given, much is required. That's something that rings in our lives, like we try to keep on the forefront, and I try to not lose sight of that. We're going to give an account of what we've been given and what we've done with it. And you have multiple stories of whether it's Jesus talking about the lady that comes in and gives the littlest gift in the sanctuary and in the temple, and he praises her because that's all she had. And then you have the people who had a lot, and they gave their tithe or whatever they thought, and he knew they were withholding something. And I just want to try to be sure, one, like Elizabeth said, that we're modeling it for our kids. And I don't ever want to get the feeling that I'm holding on to it and that I'm trying to keep it to myself. So we try to just say yes in a lot of instances. I think, we try to just say yes in a lot of instances. And sometimes that looks a lot different. Sometimes it's me coming up with a crazy idea, and it's Liz saying, okay, how can we organize this and make this work?
Who would have thought?
And then sometimes it's like a few years ago when we're in Minnesota and it's May, and all of a sudden we have snow hitting and it's going to freeze tonight. And Elizabeth says, hey, I think we need to go to Target and get blankets for people and go, because there was a homeless shelter right down the street from Target Field. And all of a sudden it's like, okay, we're taking Hayden and we're taking our newborn Mills, and we had a friend in town, and like, okay, we're passing out blankets because she got a feeling and a calling that this is something that's important and we have the ability to do it. So let's do it. So I think sometimes maybe it causes us to spread ourselves a little too thin. because we do take away some of our margins in our life and say yes to things, which is my fault because I do that. And she tries to keep us organized, like I said, but we think it's really important that we don't lose sight of how we've been blessed and given. And we think it's our job to love and bless others with those opportunities.
Yeah, I love that. I'm so thankful. I remember that. I remember y'all telling me the blanket story, and it's just a reminder of like, sometimes we try to organize generosity, but other times we just need to listen to the Holy Spirit and be prepared to be generous whenever there's a moment where God's calling us to lean into the moment so we can be generous. And I think that's great. So real quick, we're going to get to some fun questions before we close. And I may start an argument between you two. We've never had an argument with the husband and wife couple on the podcast yet. So if you guys want to be the first, it'd be awesome. So we're going to figure this out. But first of all, what's your biggest pet peeve right now?
I think right now, my biggest pet peeve is when I can't get my kids to listen the first time when I say something. I just
welcome to the rest of your life.
I think, and when I think about it, I can turn it back on myself because many times we're really working with our 6-year-old daughter with patience. And when I flip it back on myself, I find so many times I lose that patience. So my pet peeve of her being patient and listening just really comes back on me, and I'm really not that patient. So she gets it from me clearly.
That's my problem, Kyle. Thanks for letting me know right now. All right, Elizabeth, what's one of your biggest pet peeves right now?
Right now, going from room to room and it just being a total disaster. You leave them for 30 seconds. I walk in, I'm like, so you just go around all day, like, pick this up, or yeah.
And this won't start the argument, but I'm a part of that problem as well. So she leaves the room, she comes back to the room I was in, and there's more of a mess than when she left, for sure.
Yeah. We're going through the same thing. Like how our house was clean 5 minutes ago, and now it's not because we're all there and we're not leaving, and it's just wild.
Yeah, nobody leaves, so.
No one leaves, right? This is the strangest times. Like it's so like when I go to my backyard, I feel like I'm on a vacation all of a sudden. Like this is it. 50 days in, and my backyard's like, this is all I know. So. All right. Any good books you guys are reading that you'd like to recommend?
The last book I read, maybe the easiest book I've read, which is good because I like easy reads. But in spring training, we were fortunate to have John Gordon, positivity and life coach, motivational speaker type, come and speak to us. And he told us about his new book, The Coffee Bean. And it's incredible. It's maybe 100 pages, but it has pictures in it on every page. So which is maybe half of the page actually has words on it. But it's a lot of illustrations, and it just goes into what a coffee bean does to water versus, what a vegetable does, how it softens and, gets, broken down, and an egg, becomes hardened. And it's a metaphor for how we deal with adversity. So I think it's a great one for right now is get the coffee bean and read that if you're a coffee bean, then you actually change your circumstances versus, allowing the circumstances to change you.
John Gordon's amazing for sure. Elizabeth, anything?
I don't take the time to read books so much right now. I even listen to sermons, but I listen to them about, 5 to 8 minute increments at a time.
Yeah.
And then I try to remember what I listened to last time.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But one day, books again.
Yeah. 3 kids. Life is crazy. We totally get it. Hey, we love you all so much. For those who don't know, Kyle and Liz have partnered with Help One Now for many, many years. They do it now through an organization called Big League Impact, a bunch of Major League Baseball players, and really, in every sport, multiple sports, they kind of have a vision for giving back. And one of the things they've done multiple projects with Help One Now, but there's this amazing school in Haiti that's going to be so brilliant. Hopefully we'll be able to go to school this September when it opens back up. But we are so thankful for y'all's generosity, for your partnership, for everything you've done for Help One Now, but really just for how you live your life and how you love your neighbor. And so thank you for coming on to the Simple Good podcast to really talk about hope. And we can't wait to see you guys back on the baseball field soon, Kyle, hopefully, and we get a chance to hang out outside of the digital space, but in real life.
Sounds good. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it, man.
Thank you.
Right. Bye, y'all. Have a good day. Thank you. Hey everyone, hopefully you enjoyed that conversation with Elizabeth and Kyle Gibson. I love these two humans. They are so generous, so loving, so caring. They've done so much for the Help One Now vision to empower families and to educate kids around the world. So we're so thankful for their partnership with us and Big League Impact. Hopefully, and the passion and goal of every podcast is for us to get a chance to listen to everyday people who are talking as raw and as real as they can about overcoming struggles by having these really, really important anchors. Living courageous, loving one another, having faith, having hope, and like letting these anchors be the most important piece of our life. And so we love you all. Thank you so much. Do us a favor. One, if you like the podcast, subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with your friends. This is how we're going to get the word out and more people can listen to amazing stories like Kyle and Elizabeth as they talk about hope and what it means to overcome in the midst of the storm. Love you all. See you next week.